Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. We want to say thank you to our platinum sponsor, Matter Behavioral Health out of Mount Pleasant. If you guys are looking for a unique and different type of recovery center, these guys, they have it. I know a lot of recovery centers are working on digging out the problem from the inside out, but these guys have been doing that for a long time. Janie Marvin, who started it, matter of fact, gosh, we got a lot of her books sitting right here, but this gal has studied the brain, just studied humans for the past 20 years. They just got a really unique way of helping people. So guys, if you're looking for a different type of rehab center, please give Matter Behavioral a call at 435-462-2781. And they'll take really good care of you, really good care of you. So I've got the pleasure of having Mel Hobbs in the studio with me today. Mel, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Gosh, we ran into each other at a networking group.
That's right.
At a First Fridays, and you came up to me, and it had been so long since we actually spoke, I couldn't even remember who you were. So I was embarrassed for doing that. But yeah, I'm glad we had an opportunity to chat. And my wife and I have had the pleasure of speaking with your sister as well, which was really cool. So
yeah, I'm hoping to have her on here one day as well.
Yeah, I think it would be really great to have her because yeah, everybody's got a really good story to share. Right. Yeah. So today, guys, we have a special guest, and I guess I can say it's a good friend from, gosh, we've known each other for quite a while. We've got Jim Caroll on the show with us today. Jim, thank you for your time. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, I know we were supposed to have you last year, but some things changed in our schedule and we had to reschedule. And there for a minute, I thought we were going to have to do that again. But I'm glad that things worked out so we could have you here with us.
Yeah, it's I'm excited, and I don't know that I'm a special guest. I'm just a guest.
Well, well, the way we look at it here on the Other Side of Addiction podcast, every guest that comes on the show and every guest co-host that comes on the show is special, you know, because it takes a lot for somebody to come on a show and share a part of their past that they may not be proud of, you know, and we've been very blessed. Gosh, I think we've had about a half a dozen guests come on our show that have shared their story for the very first time. They've never, ever shared it. And it is so cool. And you and I have talked at some networking groups and things, but I like to look at Thursdays. I love coming into the studio because this is my therapy time. In all reality, really, it's very therapeutic for me because it gives me an opportunity to learn a little bit more about addiction. So when my wife is having those days that's really hard for her and she's really battling that demon, I know the right way now, and not saying that I do it the right way every single time, but I do it a lot better now to know how to handle it. You know, instead of me freaking out and thinking, oh my gosh, she's going to start drinking again. I know how to divert myself and kind of help her get back on the path so she can reach out to the proper people that understands what she's going through. So, Jim, are you originally from Utah?
You know, the answer is yes.
Okay.
I was born in Salt Lake City, and then they took me home to Ogden. And so by the time they took me home, my family had moved to Ogden. You know, I was a preemie, so I was in the hospital for a couple of weeks or something. But I went home to Ogden, spent the first about 5 years of my life in Ogden, then moved to Bountiful. Grew up in Bountiful. I'll jump ahead for a second and tell you, okay. I graduated from Bountiful High, but that's a long story too. So.
That's for another show.
No, we'll get to it. It's all
okay. All right. All right.
I had a PowerPoint that I was looking for a minute ago, and it's the story of my life, starting at roughly 5 years old. And when we get to the end, we might be pressed a little bit for time. I think I can talk for an hour because I'm a sales guy, you know. But at the end, there's a couple of things that I want to share, and it'll make kind of put some dots, on the marker here. So,
Okay.
but at any rate, I want to tell you about a day when I was 5 years old. And you and I have discussed this a little tiny bit, and I've golfed a time or two, and I know that for a minute he was struggling with his relationship with his wife, and you guys figured all that out and stuff.
Yes.
But I want to go back to kind of the beginning of my story of addiction, and I mentioned age 5, and at age 5, I was in my friend's backyard in Ogden, and we were playing baseball. I mean, literally playing catch with a, mitt and gloves and playing baseball. And it must have been late in the afternoon. And I know what everything looked like. I knew that the sky was blue and there was the warm summer sun and there was puffy white clouds, and it was a perfect, day for a 5-year-old. And my friend's dad came, rolling in, and we saw him pull in the driveway, and he went in the door on the side of the house, and then came out the door of the back of the house and sat down on the patio or whatever they had in the backyard. And we were playing catch, and he said, "Hey, do you guys want to split a beer?" And we said, "Beer, sure." And we split a beer.
At 5 years old.
5 years old. And unfortunately, I fell in love that day. And there's no other way to describe it. It's been described many ways, but I fell in love with alcohol that day. And we continued, like in a day or two, we had another beer and stuff. And I've had, counselors at a couple of rehabs that I've been to say to me, nobody loves beer the first time they drink it. Well, I did. And I loved everything about it. And I'll jump ahead. I jump ahead and fall back a little bit.
That's okay.
But, one of the things that I loved about it was that it was a secret. And I was in a uber Mormon family, and my parents were temple workers, and my brothers were planning on going on missions and stuff. And all of a sudden, I had a secret. I had a secret that they didn't know about, and I loved that. I love that as much as anything. And we'll talk about my views on religion in a second, but that was part of the mystique. I loved the fact. I love the taste. I loved the way it made me feel. I loved the fact that it was a secret. And from there, I went to the races. And shortly after that event that summer, we moved to Bountiful. And I told you guys I grew up in Bountiful, and I had developed a friend when I moved to Bountiful, and his parents his dad owned a big real estate company, let's say. And his job was to entertain clients, to bring clients into their home and entertain them. And they had a basement with, a couple of pinball machines and a pool table and a foosball table and a big, fireplace. And I mean, all the things that you would expect a corporate person to do to entertain.
Yeah.
Well, one part of that entertaining was they had a room that was roughly 10 by 12 or thereabouts, with cases of every kind of alcohol you can imagine stacked from the floor to the ceiling.
Holy cow.
Bottles of beer, cases of wine, cases of tequila, cases of whiskey, you name it. It was there in his house and fully accessible to us young men. And we took full advantage of that. And by the time I'm in grade school, I'm a regular weekly drinker, probably drinking, and I guess the standard is if you get drunk, twice a week or something, then you're an alcoholic. Well, I'm an overachiever, and I certainly surpassed that in my grade school days. And that went right on into middle school. And in middle school, I was a regular drinker. And an athlete. This is kind of the dichotomy, I guess. I played every sport that they played: track and basketball and football and wrestling I mean, I was a gifted athlete, but I also liked to drink. By the time I got into high school, I was a real regular drinker. And most people in the school know that if they hit Jim up, that they could find, so here's the kind of something funny about addiction, or my addiction. My roommate, or my locker mate, I guess is the correct term. He was the school drug dealer. And so in my locker, at any given time, you could find marijuana or whatever. You could find alcohol in my locker. And I honest to goodness can't figure out why our locker didn't get raided at some point.
Yeah, no kidding.
The drug dealer, I had alcohol. And we just made it through high school, I guess. We never really with a problem. So having said that, I alluded to something when we were talking before the show, that I graduated from Bountiful High. Well, that's kind of an unusual situation. So I pretty much was a gifted athlete, and I pretty much could remember everything that I read or saw. And most of the teachers really didn't want me in their classroom because I was Johnny Carson, like in the back of the room. I was there telling jokes and cracking everybody up. But they absolutely didn't want me in their classroom. So almost without exception, I would go to the teacher the first class, or the first day of class, and say, look, you tell me what day there is going to be a test. I will show up for the test, and I will pass the test, and I will pass your class. And that's pretty much how I got through high school.
Holy cow.
There's one other thing that you need to know. I was a rebel, obviously, with religion. And so the first day of seminary, I got kicked out of seminary. And seminary is a class, an extracurricular class that you take that you don't get school credit for. Well, I got school credit because I was forced to take other classes. I took classes that I got credit. And so by the end of my junior year, I had all the credits I needed to graduate from high school. During that junior year, I managed to ride my motorcycle through the halls of the school. And that was the first time I really got arrested.
So you were just like the badass then, Jim, is what I'm gathering here.
I was hell on wheels.
Jeez, yeah.
So I get to the end of my junior year, and I really have no reason to go to school my senior year, but I had a plan. I planned to go to school every day my senior year and fail every class because I didn't need one credit. And I just thought, I'm going to just go and raise hell. I mean, there's, that's all that was my plan. And the principal caught wind of it, and he called me and my parents in. And I remember him wagging his finger at me like this and going, I'm not going to let Mr. Caroll come here and be a disruptive influence, blah, 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 blah. And he kicked me out of high school.
Oh my gosh.
So in Utah at the time, you had to attend school for 12 years to actually get a diploma.
Yeah.
So he kicked me out of high school. I had no diploma, but I had the opportunity to go to the University of Utah. So I lived in Bountiful, and I registered at the university and started to go to the University of Utah. I was barely 17. And so that was a great place to send a fledgling alcoholic. I mean,
oh yeah, party time.
They could have chose BYU or something, but no, the U of U.
Well,
so,
they still party at BYU. They just don't want us to know it.
I'm aware. But so I lived up on the hill in Bountiful, and one of the guys that was actually a grade older than me, his name, I'm not going to say his name, but what we would do is we'd ride to school every morning, and we'd drive down, stop at the 7-Eleven at the bottom of the hill in North Salt Lake, or excuse me, in South Bountiful, really.
South Bountiful, and, okay.
And we'd grab a 12-pack of beer, and then we'd split it on the way to school every day. So we'd start school with a 6-pack in each of us. And, I'm 17 years old, drinking a 6-pack on my way to school, having a great time partying at night with the guys that were much, much older than me. And I remember I had a nutrition class at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I used to fall asleep every morning about 10 o'clock when I was supposed to be in my nutrition class. And the teachers, said, Mr. Caroll, if you wouldn't drink in the morning, you could stay awake through my class, So,
Well, I got to add something to that. So with you saying that you would drink 6 beers, before class and then go to nutrition class. So when I got old enough to go on the bow hunt, my dad and my uncle and one of his buddies, that they've grown up, they've known each other since grade school. And a lot of times those guys would start drinking right after breakfast, would go on the early morning hunt, come home, cook breakfast, and then they'd start drinking. And my dad's buddy that he grew up with, do you remember the book Reader's Digest?
Oh, yeah.
My parents got that like religiously.
Oh, yeah.
And so my dad's buddy, he called him Ole. I won't say his real name, but he just called him Ole. And he was drinking a beer really early. And my dad asked him, he's like, Ole, weren't you starting a little early today? And he goes, partner, I read an article in the Reader's Digest that said 1 beer equals to 2 strips of bacon and 2 eggs. So I'm drinking my breakfast today. And he says, and I may have seconds. So that's why I wanted to get that out there, because you said you drank 6 beers and then you went to a nutrition class. So basically you already had your nutrition, right?
Yeah, I was full up for the day.
Yeah.
But so that it was pretty much my start into college. I chose a profession, or I declared a major, I should say, and I was going to be a doctor. My emphasis was on human genetics and microbiology. I probably, had I finished my degree, would have ended up being a emergency room physician is what really called to me. But and you'll understand why in just a minute. It's because I perform really well under pressure. And so we'll get to that in a second. But
Okay.
So what happened was I flew through college. I did, several years in like 1 year's time. And so I'm like my third year into my studies. And I'm working part-time at the hospital, and then going to school in the mornings. It was a great job. The hospital job was a great job because they would pay you to do your homework when if you finished all of your blood draws. I was a phlebotomist is what I was.
Okay.
So one day I was done with all my blood draws, and I was done with all my homework. And so I kind of rallied all the phlebotomists in the hospital, and we met on like a vacant floor up in the hospital, and we're having wheelchair races. And so the administrator of the hospital, I don't know if it was a mistake or not, but he got off on the wrong floor and saw all of his phlebotomists having wheelchair races. And then he said, "Who's responsible for this?" And everybody pointed.
It's that guy right there.
So
busted.
I remember him wagging his finger just like my principal did and chewing my ass out. And I was disillusioned with the idea of being a doctor, and kind of decided when he was wagging his finger, I thought, I need to take a break, and I'm going to go to Hawaii and decide, what I really want to do with the rest of my life. So I decided to take 1 quarter off and go to Hawaii and, figure out what to, what better place is there to figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life.
Oh,
right?
heck yeah.
So I take 1 quarter off, and I'm gone 3 years. And, during that time, my drug of choice is without question alcohol. But I dabbled with some other things like marijuana and selling marijuana to the tourist, and
that's a pretty good gig. Yeah,
it kind of brought out this entrepreneurial spirit in me.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that. But after about 3 years or 3.5 years, I thought, well, I really need to get on with this thing called life. And so I moved back. And while I was in school, high school, I spent some time in the graphic arts department doing photography, doing printing, doing screen printing, doing all of that printing, graphic arts stuff. And so when I got back, I needed money, and a job came to my attention in printing. So I applied for it, and he gave me the job. It was, you guys may know, it was with Siegel Printing. You
Oh
guys-
yeah. As a matter of fact, we're the radio station here. We're working with Siegel Printing right now on some stuff. So yeah,
Yeah. So
they've been around a long time.
they have been, and that's where I got my first job in printing after I got back. And started in the graphics field, let's just say. But so I'm still doing my thing. I'm still drinking heavily. When I say heavily, I mean 2 or 3 times a week. You could certainly probably not want to get pulled over.
Yeah.
But that was my habit. I had developed the habit from age 5 to that point. There was nothing that had caused me to stop drinking. And like I say, I dabbled with a lot of other things, and I always came back to alcohol. Alcohol is clearly my drug of choice.
Yeah.
But I moved on into the printing career, excuse me. And most things when I apply myself are pretty easy for me, and the printing made sense. And in short order, I was running a big printing press for a packaging company, and I was running a 60-inch 6-color press. And most people, that were running a press that size, and in the printing industry or the packaging industry, usually you have years and years and years of experience. Well, I just got it, and it made sense to me. And the chemistry and all of that stuff that happens with the, alkali in the water and the alcohol in the water and all that stuff makes sense. And so I was really good at it from a very real early age. And so I'm running a printing press, and then I get the opportunity to move into the stripping department. I moved into the stripping department because of some history that I'd had there, and then quickly go from there into sales. And so I worked in the printing department in a couple of different departments, but pretty much went right into sales. And I went into sales with a company called American Color Graphics. And I had one of the best managers that I've ever had there. And he was a super manager. But he taught me a lot of the sales skills that I still possess today. But I flew through the printing industry. And I have to tell you one story real quick about my sales manager with American Color Graphics. He was a phenomenal guy. And we had a huge sales force, and this was like before pre-internet, all that stuff. So, to have, 200 or 300 people show up to the national sales meeting was not an uncommon thing. And so we all, invade this golf course down in Arizona, down in Scottsdale. And my manager said, okay, you guys pick one person that's a newbie. And so we all picked some new guy. And then he said, okay, everybody charge all of your alcohol to that room. And so we're there for 3 days golfing and drinking and golfing. And at the end of the day, we'd all charge our alcohol to that room. And so we're all kind of sitting in the back there, and that guy goes up to check out, and he's going to pay his credit card and then turn it in on his expense report and stuff. And he has like a, $10,000 alcohol bill. And
my hell.
He's just dumbfounded. He's like, this can't be right. I didn't drink that much. And he's apologizing to the managers and stuff. And it was totally hilarious. But that's the kind of guy he was. He was a great salesman, a good sense of humor. And we had a lot of fun. I learned a lot through this guy. But I'm working for this company called American Color Graphics. And you guys all know that American Stores was downtown.
Mm-hmm.
They had that big building that they built. And then I remember kind of thinking, this happened a couple of times in my life. I remember thinking, if nothing changed, I could live my life, buy a house, buy a camper, buy a boat, live the American dream, and, be totally content. And as soon as I thought that like on a Friday afternoon. So on Monday morning on my way in, I hear on the news that Albertsons just bought American Stores, which was completely turned my world in upheaval.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have been that way. American Stores should have bought Albertsons, but it's this small company bought the bigger company, and I'm confused by it, but it happened. And so shortly, American Stores announced they were closing the division in Salt Lake. My sales manager friend was dating the president of, my friend was a guy, and the president of American Stores, American Color Graphics, excuse me, was a woman, and so they were dating, and so I kind of had access to the upper level people, and so when they announced that they were closing our department in Salt Lake and pulling out, and they were taking the photo studio and the color studio and a couple of technicians and stuff, and I wrote a proposal and turned it into the president that we keep our division open, and there was certainly enough business in Salt Lake to keep our division. It would have to be pared down, but we wanted to keep it open, and so I wrote that proposal. I had Mike and his girlfriend up to my cabin up in Heber, and we spent the weekend and discussed drank a lot, of course, and then discussed my proposal, and they decided to keep it open. And so because of me, American Stores color departments, or American Graphics color departments, stayed here in Salt Lake City.
Wow.
So shortly after that, there's a company called Rastar Digital Media, and the president of Rastar, he called. We kind of knew each other vicariously. I'd done some kind of freelance work for him and some stuff. I knew most of his staff. They were all a real small local company, and he called me and said, "Let's go to lunch." And I said, "Oh, okay, no problem." So we met at lunch and at downtown, and he said, "Jim," he got real serious and said, "Jim, I need you." And I said, "What's going on?" He goes, "I want to hire you." And I said, "You can't afford me." And he says, "Write a number down." And I said, "Okay." And I wrote a number down and handed it to him. He says, "Okay, I'll pay you that." And he hired me as his general manager for this color company. And back then you used to have to do color separations and rate colors out and do all the fancy stuff that computers do now. But he hired me away from American Color Graphics to work for this company called Rastar. And all this time, and I told you I'd get to this, but I was a skydiver. And when I was about 19, I was a scratch golfer. And the biggest reason was because my dad owned a golf course, and he made arrangements for me to play with the pro every day. And Al knows that I really can't hit the ball. I'm a shitty golfer today, but I have a pretty sweet swing. I think
yes.
I applied myself, I'd probably pick it back up. But the reason I mentioned that is because I have a little over 4,000 skydives. And
man, that's a lot.
Yeah.
I've got one.
So do I.
Do you?
I do.
My dad wanted me to turn pro when I was 18, 19. And because my dad wanted it, I decided to quit golfing and start skydiving. So that goes to the little bit of the rebellious side of me.
Yeah, riding motorcycles in the hall. Yeah.
Exactly.
I get it.
Every time in my life when I get challenged or there's an obvious thing that I should do, I do the opposite thing pretty much. So
do you oh, go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, go.
Oh, I was just going to say, do you think that's why you went heavy into the drinking is just because of that challenge?
The answer is yes, and I think I can clarify in a few minutes. But
okay,
what happened was that it was that secret, and I literally started drinking at 5 and was probably I remember 13 or 14-ish before my parents figured out that I drank. And I remember being 15 or 16-ish and my mom sending me to a psychiatrist. She hired a psychiatrist and sent me to this psychiatrist, and he and I had kind of an adult conversation about drinking. And I honestly don't remember much of what I told him, but I remember at the end of a couple of sessions, he went to my mom and said, Jim's fine. He doesn't have a problem. That's what he chose to do. And he'll outgrow it, or he'll get over it, or whatever.
Yeah.
But it never happened. And so I had this rebellious streak. My dad wanted me to turn pro. I decided to start skydiving. I've been literally all over the planet skydiving. This is maybe where my story starts to turn a little tiny bit dark. I'm a skydiving instructor. I'm a skydiving instructor. I'm a tandem instructor. I was at one point the safety and training advisor for the region of Utah. The United States Parachuting Association appoints a safety and training advisor. I was that person for a while, and I ran a drop zone. I've jumped out of planes that were on fire because the motor blew up. I jumped out of a plane once when I was on fire. And well, it's because the smoke grenade that I had on my foot malfunctioned, and it burned into my leg instead of out from my leg. And that was down at the Utah Summer Games. And I had no choice but to get out of the plane because we didn't want to catch the plane on fire.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I survived that. I've had a couple malfunctions. All my malfunctions, I do want to say my ex-wife packed. So I don't know what that means, but
yeah. well, so let's go to a quick commercial break, but then let's come back to all this, because you said this is kind of when things started going a little bit dark for you. But yeah, because I definitely want to hear the rest of the story, but we also want to respect your time as well. So guys, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Do you or a loved one or someone you know struggle with addiction?
Have you lost hope, or are you struggling to make connections?
Have you been to other treatment programs and have yet to reach your full potential?
We are Matter Behavioral Health. At Matter Behavioral Health, we understand substance abuse treatment works best when the client is taught ways of identifying for themselves their own dysfunctional views of their life that trigger their self-limiting beliefs and leads back to addiction.
We help you get to the core of what's causing your addiction.
We offer inpatient and outpatient services. To find out what's best for you, call us at 435-462-2781. That's 435-462-2781.
Don't wait, give us a call. Your life depends on it. Call us at 435-462-2781.
Have you ever been in a car accident? Do you know what to do after being in a car accident? Are the insurance companies going to take care of you? Hi, I'm attorney Rick Heaton with the Law Office of Bobby Udall. I will help you through the process and answer all of these questions. I give every single client my cell phone so they can talk to me whenever they need. Let me deal with the insurance company so you can focus on getting better from your injuries. Call me at 385-330-0226. Again, my cell phone number, 385-330-0226. Don't call the insurance company first. Call attorney Rick Heaton at 385-330-0226.
Hello, my friends. This is Brad Neufeld, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Resilience Talk Network. You can listen to my show, Resilience, every morning, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. On my show, we will be discussing what it takes for you to overcome the day-to-day challenges that all of us face in life, as well as some of the devastating ones that may lead us to feelings of hopelessness and despair. It's my goal to provide you with the tools and skills that you need to overcome anything that is thrown your way. To find out more about my show, visit our website at www.resiliencetalk.com. That's www.resiliencetalk.com. And as always, until we meet again, go for everything that you want in life and make it happen.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Other Side of Addiction podcast. I'm here with the lovely Mel Hobbs. Mel, again, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we want to say thank you to our platinum sponsor, Matter Behavioral Health out of Mount Pleasant. If you guys are looking for a different type of recovery center, we highly recommend and endorse these guys. These guys are just awesome. They're just incredible. We are here with the special guest. He said not a special guest, but everybody's a special guest. So Jim Caroll, Jim, man, the first half of the show was awesome. I'm really getting into this story. And you were saying that you've jumped out of a plane on fire. And right before we went to break, you were saying this is kind of when things started going dark. So I'm just going to send it back over to you and let you just start taking off on your story here.
Very good. Thank you. So at that point in time, I was hired by a company called Rastar. I was their GM for a while. I was a VP for a while and GM. And then I became a VP of new business development and helped them land a contract with a little company called Toyota. And it wasn't Toyota of America. It was Toyota of Japan. And so Rastar had grown by leaps and bounds, and we were really progressive in our thinking. And we were the first company that tied a bunch of knots together. Those knots were that we could take data and we could crunch that data through a computer and make some hypotheses about the data in that computer, and then take a digital printing press and then use that as a marketing tool to market to those people in the printing from the end of the printing press. I'll clarify real quickly. So what we would do is we would take a database, a credit card database, and then we would crunch that through our computers and look for triggers like somebody bought a battery, somebody had a radiator repair, or somebody bought some tires. And we would believe that if they had a radiator repair, let's say, that they were in the market for a new car. So then what we would do is we would then go look at their zip code +4 or zip +8, basically their whole block, and see what kind of cars all of those people had. And undoubtedly they had Suburbans or something, a big Toyota 4Runner or whatever. And then we would take a look at that person's personality and then start to apply some logic to that. So now we know that the person's in the market for a car because they had a radiator repair. We know that everybody in their block drives a 4Runner, and then we know that he likes yellow because of some personality profile we applied to him. And so we would start marketing a yellow 4Runner to him with inside that block +4. The next block +4 would be an entirely different set of dynamics. But then we would take that printing press that printed digitally and apply all of our logic up to that point, print that brochure, and then mail it to that one guy that we thought wanted a yellow 4Runner.
Holy cow.
We had incredible success is the best terminology that I can give you. We were getting response rates of about 50%, somewhere between 35 and 50%.
Holy cow.
In a normal marketing campaign, if you get a 2 or 3% response rate, you're a rock star, right?
Yeah.
Well, we were getting such good response rates that the U.S. Senate created a law saying that you can't do what we were doing. And they broke our company up into 3 parts, and we sold the company. I didn't sell the company. I'd exited by then. But the company was sold up into Canada and to 3 different companies that all then worked cooperatively and did the same thing. But in the United States.
So you guys were basically profiling, really, is what you were doing.
100%.
Yeah, you were profiling.
We taught the TSA to do what they do today.
Wow.
And
Pretty
I
cool.
can't say that legally, because if this gets aired, then the TSA will come listen to your program and then audit you probably out with all your money and stuff. But
we're not making any money off of this. So
I know, but the point is that it was profiling, and it was before the TSA really figured out what to do. We were doing, and then it became illegal and was stuff. But shortly after, we or we sold that program to Toyota of Japan, they severenced me out of the company, which I was totally okay with. That was, I mean, usually that has a negative connotation, but I got to spend about a year golfing, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself. After a year of golfing, my wife said, you need to find something to go do. And so I started my first.
I would have said I'm golfing.
I know.
I'm not sitting home watching soap operas. I'm golfing.
Well, good gosh. It was the time that I started my first internet company. And I do want to preface this, and I don't think I'm throwing anybody under the bus. But when I want to discuss some of the darkness. And I had been married maybe at that point for 15 years or something like that. My wife was an alcoholic. She drank as much as I did every day. Maybe I don't want to say more, but she would get up and start her day with a vodka. I'd get up and I'd usually get up in the middle of the night and have a glass of wine and then go back to bed. It was totally normal for us to have that type of relationship. If I couldn't sleep, I had a glass of wine or a shot of Jägermeister or whatever, and then went back to bed. We had no children. That's an important part of my story. So there was no rules, really, if you can think about that.
Yeah.
We built a house. We called it our cabin. It was a 4,000 square foot cabin up in the mountains above Heber at 9,000 feet of elevation.
Oh man.
At the time I built it, the closest plowed road was about a mile away. So I actually, when I chose to, I would fire up my tractor and open the road and keep the road open so that I could get in and out, and that we could have parties. And we had all the people that lived on the mountain. The drinkers would hang out with us, or we would go to one of their houses and have, I mean, it was a very social environment. It was a very happy time of my life. I snowmobiled, 6 days a week. I golfed a lot. I owned my own company. Life was really, really good. But when I look back in hindsight, I still skydived at that point in time, and I was the safety and training advisor for a part of the state of Utah. Well, I thought nothing of having a drink and going and doing a tandem skydive with a student. And so, in hindsight, I really feel poorly about that, because I risked somebody's life.
Yeah.
I strapped them to me, and that's where I start to get some remorse, and some remorse starts to creep in. But on one side of everything, it was some of the best times of my life, in the sense that I was happy. I was drinking, without any controls. At least when I was working for a corporation, I couldn't really show up without, to work with alcohol in my breath at 8 o'clock. They didn't care if I went and had a drink at lunch, because I was entertaining clients, or that was my job, was new business development. So they really didn't care. But I didn't show up drunk. After I exited that company, then there was no rules. And I was my own boss. I owned my own company. I owned my own internet company. Most of my work I did online. I could pick and choose days when I left the mountain and didn't leave the mountain. Things really started to spin out of control, with no controls really on me at that point in time. I built that business. It was called Websites International, and I built that business to the point where the corporation, it was performing on a level that the corporate people, it was a franchise. The corporation WSI bought that franchise back from me because it was performing at a certain level. And I said, great, you buy it, I'll sell it. So I sold it back to the original franchisee, and I don't know what they did with it. It went out of business. They couldn't support it locally, so it went out of business ultimately. But I sold that and started golfing again, golf for a little while. And my wife said, go find something to do. And I started, when she said that, I started a web hosting company. And so I ran a web hosting company for a few years. And then I could see this behemoth coming at me called GoDaddy. And I was, making really good money hosting for people, but they had dedicated servers and dedicated backups and, all this dedicated stuff. Well, GoDaddy doesn't dedicate anything. they charge $3. And, so if you're charging a couple $100 to a client, they want to know why somebody else can do it for $3. And
Yeah.
that's a real difficult conversation to have if they don't understand the technology. It's not that we screwed anybody. It's that they didn't understand the value of a dedicated, 24-hour backup, and stuff like that. So my life continued to spin a little tiny bit out of control. The reason I told you that my wife drank was because, during the area that I own, the hosting company, my health started to deteriorate. And one day my wife took me to the doctor, and this probably now's, I'm going to say 12 years ago or something like that. And I walked into the doctor, and he said, "Oh my God, you look like shit." And apparently my skin was gray, everything was gray. He put me on, gave me kind of a quick checkup, put me on his EKG machine. And he came in and he said, "If you'll go straight to the hospital, I won't call the ambulance." And basically my body had enough. My body was shutting down.
Yeah.
And so they took me to the hospital, and I spent 28 days in intensive care.
Holy cow.
Wow.
My body was shutting down. My heart was working and my lungs were kind of working, but everything else was pretty much shut down. And so I spent a lot of time with some internal medicine people and work getting myself back to health. The day, it was in November. I can give you the day if you want, but it was in November. That day that they checked me into the hospital, my wife quit drinking, and she just quit. She didn't like
just
go
cold
treatment.
turkey.
Yeah, just freaking quit. And I'll tell you this much about it. And Al, you may or may not find this interesting, but I resented her for years. The better part of a decade. I resented the fact that she could just quit and I couldn't.
Yeah.
And
I could get that, Jim, because when my wife, there at one time when she was battling her addiction, she did go 13 months sober. Mm-hmm. And there at the end, I don't know, probably up to about the 8-month mark or so, she was okay if I had a drink. But I could tell she had a lot of resentment as well, because she knew I could sit down and have a drink or two, and then I was good. I was good for another week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, however long, till I decided I'd like to have another drink. So I get that point, because she used to throw at me a lot of times when she did fall back into the addiction really heavy. Us on the other side, that's what we say. It's like I would tell her all the time, just freaking quit, just stop, just stop. Because we think it's easy because it's easy for us, but it's not for them. And she used to throw at me all the time. She goes, "What if I told you, because I love ice cream. I flippin' just love ice cream. I've had to work very hard not to have a bowl of ice cream every night. I've cut it down to about 2 to 3 days a week." But she says, "What if I told you could never have a bowl of ice cream ever again, the rest of your life? How would that make you feel?" And I'm like, well, yeah, that would really suck, but it's different.
Yeah, I'll just stop.
Just stop. So I can get that resentment that you had, because she had that against me as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a disease, and I'm just going to tell you, it's not easy to quit.
Yeah.
So I spent the next 5 years, and the next 5 years I'm really introspective, and I think back about my history and some of the crazy shit that I did. And, believe me, there's a lot more crazy shit than a motorcycle and a skydive, but yeah, I did some crazy stuff. But, she quit that day. I spent the next 5 years trying to quit, and I would go 90 days and then disappear for like a week. And when I ran out of alcohol, or I ran out of my stash or whatever, then I would be forced to get sober. And it's like, man, what day is it? Did I really miss a week? And literally I would go like a week and just be blacked out. And what happened was that when I couldn't drink on a regular basis, like I drank before, I mean, I was a 7-day-a-week drinker. when I talked about building my cabin and snowmobiling and having all that fun. But when I was forced to kind of have these periods of like 90 days of sobriety or 120 days of sobriety, it forced me to be a blackout drinker. And that's a really weird way to think about it. But what it did was, if I could have a drink every day, then I had this kind of constant level numbness, and numbness from my feelings or my, whatever it was I was running from. But then when I'm in this new situation, I just drank everything in sight until I passed out or blacked out. And then I knew where my stash was, and I'd go, finish my stash. I could easily miss 3 or 4 days, and then like start drinking on a Thursday afternoon, and then wake up on a Tuesday morning and go, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
It's sad, but it's true. I mean, I'm just sharing with you guys the way it really worked.
So
I actually was there at that point where I was drinking in my early 20s. Every night I blacked out. Every night. I drove home every night.
yeah.
Knock on wood is right.
Yeah. That's what I've said about, even with my wife. It was so many times that I told her that God was definitely watching over.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. So Jim, a question for you. I mean, when you got to that point, did you get to where you were a blackout drunk just because of the resentment because of your wife that she stopped? Is that what pushed you over that edge?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I stumble with that question a little bit. Certainly there was a lot of resentment in the beginning. But it took 5 years, and we got divorced at the end of 5 years. And there was a couple of things that happened. I had a DUI in Salt Lake County. I had a DUI in Davis County, and then I had a DUI in Wasatch County. And the last DUI was the Wasatch County, and they just didn't give me bail. They just, because every time I got like in Salt Lake and Davis County, I just bail out and then get my truck out of impound, and then go off again. So I did that like 3 times, as fast as you can get 3 DUIs, get your truck bailed out, and get arrested again. That's how fast those 3 DUIs happened. Wow. So I got they just left me in jail in Wasatch County the 3rd time, and then over a period of time, I'm going to say a couple of months, we figured it out, and I was forced into a program up in Davis County, and it was an 18-month program, and I was UA'd like 2 or 3 times a week. I mean, I couldn't use, or I got thrown back in jail or whatever. And so I was forced kind of into sobriety. And it's interesting. I've given this analogy in my classes, and I'll give it to you guys. It's like when I had 30 days of sobriety, it was like, holy shit, my mind is so clear. What was I thinking 30 days ago? And then when I had 60 days, it's like, holy shit, what was I thinking 30 days ago? Because now my mind is really clear. And then 90 days, it's like, holy shit. And that happened for like the first year. I mean, it honestly took a year for me to really think clear-headed. And it's interesting because I ran a business. I had some business acumen. I had some success. I mean, it was all kind of craziness, but it happened that way. So by the end of my 18 months, I was forced to live in Davis County. I lived right across the street from Cabela's, in those apartments there, right there by I-15. And I worked at Cabela's in the gun department for a while, which was kind of exciting. But I attended a group. There was a building. It's now called Red Barn Academy.
Yes.
You may have heard of it.
Yes, I have. Yeah. So you've been there.
Yeah.
Wow.
I lived I lived in the apartments right next to the Red Barn Academy, and I know Mike and his dad and everybody really, really well. And back then, it wasn't even the Red Barn Academy. They just was like an old barn that his dad had, and we had AA meetings there. And the AA meetings evolved into something called Smart Recovery. And over some time, maybe from my last DUI to maybe 2 years, I became a Smart Recovery counselor. And I'm going to tell you guys the next part of this story is really interesting. So for the next couple of years, 2-3 years, I ran groups for Smart Recovery. SMART's an acronym that stands for Self-Management and Recovery Training. And it's really different than AA. I think personally, this is my personal opinion, and hopefully you don't get hate mail for it, but I think AA is a bunch of Nazis, and they don't really treat the symptoms. They just say, don't do it. And it doesn't work for everybody to just be told not to do it. In fact, usually if you tell me to do something, I'll do the opposite thing. I've proven that pretty much throughout my life. But the Smart Recovery, Self-Management Recovery Training made a lot of sense to me. I became a counselor. I taught classes. I did it for years and years. This is the part of my story, and I know that we're getting tight on time, but hopefully you'll stick with me for a minute.
Your story, bud, as long as you want.
So I had over 6 years of sobriety, and I did use the word had there for us for just a second. But I started to romance the idea of drinking like a normal drinker. See this? Look at her saying,
just a little, just one.
So I started to romance the idea, and I knew to the day, because my sobriety date was St. Patrick's Day, so March 17th. And then I knew how old I was when I first started drinking, and I drank for 5 years. So I took the 5 years and added 5 years or added time to that, and figured out when my sobriety date would be to make it the longest period of continuous sobriety that I had in my whole life.
Wow.
That is insane to think about like that.
Yes.
It's what I did. So when that day passed, I thought, no problem. And that day happened to be, it was in September, was the longest period of sobriety that I'd had. That's when I started to romance the idea about drinking again. And so I'll just make the long story short. So I relapsed shortly after Christmas this last year. And I spent a couple of months pretty much in the bottle. Something interesting about alcohol is that you never like reset your genes or whatever. It's like if you're a blackout drinker and you start drinking again, you start drinking again as a blackout drinker.
Yes. Yeah.
So I started drinking a little bit after Christmas, whatever, proved to myself and the whole world that I'm a true through and through blackout drinker. Because like a week would go by and I'd wake up and say, oh my God, it's really that date. And so I relapsed last Christmas, and I'm still recovering from it. Both now there's a different layer of guilt. There's a different layer of all that stuff, that I thought that I'd earned, that credibility that I thought that I'd earned. With that's 6 or 7 years of sobriety. Now I'm still assimilating all of that. I'm actually in treatment. I'm sorry that you have another sponsor, but I'm in treatment with another company. I'm not going to name.
It's okay.
I go to treatment a couple times a week. I also have I'm dual insured, so I'm fortunate compared to a lot of people. I also have a private psychiatrist that I go to, and he and I are the counselors at the treatment center. Like, let's work on a relapse plan. I hate to say it like that, but it's real kind of elementary to me. I know what a relapse plan is. I used to teach relapse plans. I can put together a relapse, non-relapse plan. But that's what the counselors at the treatment center want to do with me, and they work with me on that. But me and my psychiatrist are getting pretty deep into the weeds, and he's still kind of assimilating the fact that I just liked alcohol from the very beginning.
Yeah.
most people don't. Most people spit it out. And I just gulped it down. And so I think a little bit of an oddity, and then you pile in the secret nature of it that my Mormon family didn't know about or understand. I loved having that secret. And then, all the other stuff, and it grew on itself, through my business career, through college, through all of that. And I am where I am today. I'm almost 60 years old, and I feel like I'm starting from scratch again with the guilt and the remorse and getting over alcoholism. And I knew better than to have.
And that guilt, the way I saw it with my wife, it was like constantly jumping back on that hamster wheel, because she did the same thing like you did, Jim. She would go 30 days, she'd go 60 days, she'd go 90 days. When she was at a 6-month program, of course, she was 6 months, and it didn't take long after that before she'd start drinking again. And it's like she would drink and do some really bad things, say some really mean things. And then when she'd sober up, she'd feel so guilty of what she put me through. And she would just grab that bottle again and go back through it. And she told me a number of times, she goes, I don't know why I keep doing this. I don't know, because I feel so bad with what I did, but yet I turn around and I do it again, and it's hard to understand. And my wife has gone over 16 months sober, and here just about probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, she lapsed, not relapsed, but she lapsed. And I didn't know the difference between the two.
I'm not familiar with the two.
Lapse means that she was feeling sorry for herself that day. I was upset because she quit a job, and she just went on a one-nighter, and she got herself extremely plastered. I kicked her out, got her into a hotel because I didn't want her around me. I did not want to step my foot in that same pile of shit that I stepped my foot in number of times,
Yeah.
And I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that it was just that one time, because whenever I saw that one time before, that one time turned into months and months and months of drinking before we were back at detox and back into a rehab again. But I'm very glad that it was just that one. But having people on the show, Jim, like yourself, and yours is unique. I mean, it really is, because a lot of our guests, I would say the majority of our guests that have come on, started drinking or drugging usually about the age of 12, 13, about the puberty time.
Yeah, that's the first time I ever smoked cigarettes, smoke weed.
Yeah.
And
it's kind of like that, the starting age for you to do it at 5 and go as long as you did.
I've definitely never heard that before.
Yeah. Yours is definitely unique.
And that's, I'll share a little bit more personal stuff. That's what helps or makes it difficult for me and my psychiatrist to unwind it, because my life was baseball and apple pie. I mean, I'm in a group that I go to a couple of times a week now, and I'm telling you, everybody that's told their story in that group, there was some form of sexual abuse or molestation, or there was something bizarre going on that made them want to have this escapism.
Yep.
And I honestly can't look you and say my life was anything but perfect. I played every sport. I was out till the street lights came on, and then my parents would, I'd have to be home. And you guys know the story.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, my life was just fun. It was baseball and apple pie, and then you just throw a little bit of beer with it, and man, I had an awesome life. But I do want to say this to your listeners. It ultimately ends like my story did, either with us, 28 days in intensive care is pretty serious.
Yes.
Problem, and then getting out of that hospital. And when we walked in the hospital from that, when my wife picked me up, I was looking for my stashes. She'd gone through my house and cleaned out almost all my stashes. But I was looking everywhere for a bottle. And
so that didn't even scare you. I mean, 28 days in intensive care didn't scare you
I
enough to
needed-
say I'm done.
no, I needed a drink so bad. I wanted to
Yeah.
drink so bad.
Wow.
But it's a disease, and it's I wish that I could say that, do this and it'll fix it, or you'll get
Yeah.
over it. And there's nothing like that. It is hard work, and that's what it takes. I'm back to square one, and not square one-ish, but I have a real unique perspective when I go to group and speak. It means something to some of those kids because they're listening now, and
Absolutely.
I've got a lot to say. But so anyway, even after 7 years of sobriety, it can raise its ugly head, and I even knew it when I started romancing the idea. I to calculate that date.
Yeah.
And it was September 18th, that I had the longest continuous sobriety of any point in my life. And then
I want to add something real quick with the time span. For me, when I quit smoking cigarettes, it was that daily. I went to Wendover and got so hammered that on the way home, as midsummer, no AC, my hair down to my waist, it's going everywhere. I'm so sick. I was literally sick for like 5 days. And after day 3, I was like, I haven't smoked a cigarette in 3 days. I'm like, well, it was unintentional. I knew I wanted to quit eventually, but I didn't know when, but it was like, dang, I've gone 1 week, 2 weeks, like I've gone a month, 2 months. It was that kept me going. And when I find myself coming back to the place to where it's like, I feel like I need that, it's like, I'm around it all the time. So it's like the need of it. It's like, what am I missing right now? Or what am I doing that's creating a space to where I'm lacking to have to fill that void
Let's see,
somehow.
cigarettes, you just stop. I mean, that's easy. Right?
Yeah. yeah. That's what I've been working on my wife, because she still smokes, and she's like, look, you either want me to quit drinking or quit smoking. I'm like, yeah, just quit drinking right now.
You have to want to.
You can't do both. Yeah.
You have to have that want. Like, I knew that I wanted to quit. I just didn't know that I was ready for it.
Yeah.
I knew that if I did it without being ready, then I wouldn't have done it. So I'm thankful that I actually went down that road that I did to get to where I am. And I'm thankful that I had actually quit smoking at the age of 20. So it's been 15 years that I haven't, but it's really easy to still think about the want for it when you're drunk.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's good that you brought that up, Mel, because I've shared this on many other podcasts before, and I'll hurry up because I know Jim's got to go here pretty soon, but I was at an AA meeting with my wife, and this guy gets up and he's getting his 10 or 15 year chip, whatever it was. And they usually get up and sing that, it's the happy birthday. And, and he tells his story, and he says, I get up and I thank God every day for making me an alcoholic. And I leaned over to my wife and I said, that guy is effing nuts. Why would he thank God for making him an alcoholic? As he continued his story, see, I got goosebumps. As he continued his story, I got it. I understand, or I understood at that time. And it's to see where his life's at today, and his story is a little bit like Jim's. He was successful and he ended up losing everything because of his addiction, but he's gained everything back plus probably tenfolds. And it's because of the way he looks at life and how he understands different things, where somebody like, as my wife used to call me, you're a normie, it's something that we don't understand because we've not traveled that path. And I'm actually have to say, I'm grateful for my wife's alcoholism. And it may sound crazy, but, and she brought this to light at me, and she's 100% right. She came into the studio one day and watched a show after she was really pissed that I was doing this show because she thought all I was doing was bad mouthing her. Yeah. She finally came in, saw one of our shows, and on the way home, she goes, babe, I know I told you I don't want you to do this, but she says, I was wrong. Do not stop doing this. And she goes, but keep in mind, I get all the credit. And she's joking with me. And I says, oh, why do you get all the credit? She goes, because if it wasn't for my alcoholism, you wouldn't be doing this right now. And I said, you know what? You're 100% correct. So I have to say, I'm grateful because every week I get to be in a studio with incredible people. And they touch my life in so many freaking ways. I am just so blessed to have met so many incredible people who at one day people saw them out on the streets and society was putting that freaking label on them. When again, that's another reason why this show is we want to help get rid of that label and that stigma. But, and one other story, Jim, that I've told on the show here many times. You and I went to a same networking group one day and you walked up to me and he says, hey, I got something to show you. I know you'll appreciate this. And he reaches in his pocket and I think it was a 5-year chip, wasn't it? You had just received your 5-year chip. And Jim hands it to me. And I know that when you get that, you're rubbing your love and your energy in it. And I told Jim, I said, yeah, I bought my wife a 1-year chip once when she went 13 months sober. And I says, and then when she started drinking, I took that chip away. And I watched Jim. He was standing probably about a foot away, 2 feet away from me. And I could see his fist doubling up and I could see his facial expressions change. And he goes, don't you ever take somebody's chip away from them because they deserve every single, and he's chewing my ass out. Right. And I'm looking at him going, man, I've never seen this side of him before. But Jim, that
progress is
that
still there.
day, and I get emotional talking about it because what you did to me that day, you opened my eyes. You helped me realize how hard of a struggle it was for my wife to even go those 30 days. And she did deserve that. But me being on the other side, I'm just like, oh, well, yeah, frickin' throw this chip in your shoebox with 15 other frickin' 30 days. Who gives a shit? That's how I looked at it. And we had a guest on our show. And this was after you even said that to me. We had a guest on our show who battled sex addiction and porn addiction. And he was on a business trip, pulled up to a bridge, and he was going to commit suicide out of state. And he started asking God why. And then all of a sudden he started realizing, I went 3 days once. Oh my gosh, I went 8 days. So he said, instead of counting the days that he was not clean, I guess you should say, he started counting the days that he was, and he started realizing those numbers were actually increasing. And that really, between what Jim said to me that day and what that gentleman said on our show, really opened my eyes. So this is my chance to say here on the air, Jim, thank you so much for doing that, because that day helped me so much. I know it pissed you off, but it was worth it because I got to learn something new. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you guys for having me today. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. So I know you got to go. Is there one last thing you want to share with our listeners before we go?
I'm going to tell you something, a real super duper quick story, and then I'm going to have a closing statement. So I recently had to go through like a readmission. And I've been analyzing a lot of stuff about my early life and trying to figure out what happened to me. And I'll tell you what happened to me in just a second. But so we're going through this intake, and the counselor's going, well, did you try marijuana? Of course. Did you try cocaine? Of course. Did you, and she had a list of 30 things, and everything on it I've tried. And it kind of shocked me to have this laundry list of things that she went through, and I'd tried most of them all, but alcohol is the only thing that stuck. Alcohol is my drug of choice. It's my mistress. I go back to her. I have gone back to her my whole life, I should say. But there's a problem with my whole life, and I think that with my psychiatrist, we're down to this point, is that I never had a plan, and I never would ask for help. So because I didn't have kids because, I didn't have the opportunity to go teach little league, football or baseball or something. I just, had a reason to go drink at night. If it's a good day or a bad day, it doesn't matter. I had a reason to go drink at night. I didn't have a plan, and that's been my problem my whole life. I don't have a plan. I still don't have a plan. I don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up. So you guys make a plan. Please make a plan. And even if it changes, that's okay. I've got friends that I remember being in high school, and they said, I'm going to be a dentist. And, sure as shit, he grew up and he's a dentist now and, lives wherever in Immigration Canyon or something. But he had a plan and he stuck to it. I never had a plan. I just, whichever way the wind blew, I said, this sounds fun. Let's go do it. And so I never had a plan. I never stuck to it. And I never would ask for help. When you do need help, and everyone's got an addiction. I will say that is my final statement. Is everyone's addicted to something, and Al's addicted clearly to this podcast, and so Al, get over it.
Yeah, that one's not going to happen because I am definitely addicted to this podcast. That is for doggone sure.
Thank you for having me on. Everybody get a plan. Everybody stick to it, and get help if you need it.
I love it. Well, Jim, thank you again for your time. Greatly appreciate it. I loved everything that you talked about. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing a part of your life. Mel, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And we just want to say before we sign off real quick, thank you to all our other sponsors. I mean, we've got a plethora of sponsors that have come into the show. We also have support of other rehabs like Corner Canyons Health and the Other Side Academy downtown Salt Lake. We've had Wasatch on here. We've had USARA. Thank you to Matter, everybody, all our listeners. So guys, thank you. None of this would be possible if it wasn't for you. We're going to leave you with this as we do at the end of every show. Remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing. Recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.
Good morning, this is Leticia with Computer Hospital. We are your computer repair experts for both PC and Mac. We are your community resource for all of your computer repair needs. What makes us different is that we want to fix your computer. We also do free diagnostics. We charge a flat rate labor, which means that you won't pay by the hour. All of our computer repair is done in-house with a fast turnaround time, and same-day service is also available. Feel free to stop by anytime without an appointment. We're located in Sandy at 8721 South State Street. Again, that's 8721 South State Street, or call us at 801-987-3993. Again, that's 801-987-3993. This is Leticia with Computer Hospital, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Hello there, this is Brad Neufeld with the Resilience Talk Network, and I would like to introduce to you Taffytown, one of our newest sponsors. Let me introduce you to Derek.
Hi, I'm Derek from Taffytown. We're proud sponsors of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. Taffytown is a family-owned and operated business still operating in the Salt Lake City area for over 100 years. We manufacture some of America's best saltwater taffy.
What makes Taffytown stand out from all of the others?
We have a unique recipe, a whipped-style recipe that incorporates egg whites, evaporated milk, real sea salt. It's a unique product that is flavorful, melts in your mouth, and the best part is we probably have a flavor for anyone's liking, a flavor for any reason, for any season. We have unique flavors like chicken and waffles, maple bacon, frosted cupcake. New this year was a pineapple ghost pepper flavor.
That's awesome. Where can people find out more about Taffytown and all of its products?
You can check all of this stuff out. All of our products are available for sale on taffytown.com. We ship for free from our website, so all of our pricing on there is shipping included. Oftentimes we offer special promotions and discounts to our loyal customers, so do be sure to sign up for an account, and we look forward to seeing what we can do to make you smile with our taffy.
Where are you located?
We are currently located at 9813 South Prosperity Road in West Jordan, Utah, just at the foothills of the Copper Canyon mine.
Derek, taffy has always been a great gift to give. What are some of the creative ways Taffytown can help say thank you to others?
Yeah, if you're looking for gift ideas, whether to say thank you to friends or family, or maybe to your clients after such a difficult or successful year that you've had, you could look no further than to get a gift idea from taffytown.com. We offer pre-packaged gift boxes that say that it's saltwater taffy from the city of the Great Salt Lake, and it tells a little bit about the history of our community and making candy for so long. You can also do customized gifts to pick out just the right flavors or colors of candy for that special someone, and deliver even a personalized message in that box to them. So please feel free to check out taffytown.com for any gift ideas this season.
Thank you so much, Derek. Please visit taffytown.com, that's taffytown.com, to find out more about the products and services that Taffytown offers. You won't be disappointed.
Do you know someone who's gambling with death due to an addiction? Do you know someone whose life is being turned upside down due to a loved one that's battling with addiction? Hi, I'm Al Richards. I am the host of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. I started the podcast due to my wife's battle with alcohol. Let's just say I became addicted to her addiction. Our podcast is helping people understand a little more about those who have battled addiction and those who are hurting from their addiction. Through raw vulnerability, we share stories that help uncover the root causes of addiction. Shame felt on both sides, matter of the conscious and subconscious mind, continued beliefs, and often confusing paths of recovery. We collaborate with real people and their stories, as well as licensed professionals, to help our audience gain a better understanding of addiction. You can find us on Resilience Talk Network. You can also find us on Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. That's Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. You can also find us on YouTube. Just look up the Other Side of Addiction podcast.